Alright guys, I seem to have lost a bit of footage from the start of this build on this fan shroud. So bear with me a little bit, you won't get to see how I made everything, but I'll start from here, and if I find that footage from the first part of it that went somewhere on my computer, I don't know where it downloaded to, if I find it I'll put it in, but if not we'll just start from here. How I started was with basic sheet metal like this, and I figured out the diameter of my fan, how big the circle had to be around the fan, and how big of a shroud I could put in that custom front end. And I've got this shroud for the fan built. And what I did is I took a piece of sheet metal that was way too deep. This is going to get cut back at least halfway. I'd say at least to here. But I wanted to make it too long so I had plenty of material to work with. I cut that strip and then I rolled it over. And I've got too much. I've got to cut this off right here. So I'll bend this up to show you. I rolled it over so there's no sharp edge there on this edge. There's nothing that's going to cut you if you're working on the car later. I also took, to make it a stronger circle, I took 1/4 inch round stock and I used my ring roller to roll it into a perfect circle, the diameter that I wanted. Put it in here and tack welded it all the way around. So that gives me the shroud that's going to go around the fan. And it's going to have about, I'd say 3/4 of an inch of clearance all the way around the fan. So the fan won't hit anything on this, as long as I position everything correctly. So that's that first piece that I made. The second piece I made was a framework for the fan shroud itself. And this piece fits down in behind the radiator and it'll bolt on to where the radiator mounts bolt and then slide into the little groove on the radiator that I'll show you later. So I've got this structure piece and the shroud. Now I've got to make the piece, the box that covers all this and connects to the shroud. So I cut out this piece, plenty big. I set this on there, squared it up, and I scribed a line where I could bend it so it would be a box and would stick up a little bit further. And then I can work with getting that connected to this later. So the best way I could figure to make these bends, these breaks, since I don't have a sheet metal brake, and I'm probably not going to use one too much, so I don't feel like going out and buying one. I used a straight edge level and the edge of this plywood that I have sitting on this stand. Just put it right along your line, hold it down with one hand, and tap with a hammer right on that edge. And it turns out pretty good. You got a decent little X there in your sheet metal to make it more rigid so it doesn't vibrate. Alright, so I've got this part of the fan shroud done up pretty good. Got the sides bent up, notched the corners so they fit nice and snug, fit together. And it fits inside the framework really nice, really snug fit. It's going to work out pretty good. I also rolled this edge over. Number one, I'd made it too tall on purpose so I'd have material to work with. I didn't want to make it too short and then have to add something to it or remake the whole thing in general. So I took my compass, I measured out about how far I needed to be, I scribed a line, and I rolled it over. Now rolling it over obviously made a clean look, but it also kept it dull. It's not sharp anymore. So if it happens to bump up against my radiator when I'm taking it in or out, it won't just cut a hole in it. Have a better chance of just leaving it alone, maybe putting a little mark in it or something, but not puncturing it. So fits inside the framework, really nice. It's actually a pretty snug fit. I don't know if I'll be able to squeeze it in here too quick. Yeah, it's a snug fit. It goes on there though. It's just going to take a little bit of maneuvering to get it on there. So I put that together and I set it in there behind the radiator in front of the fan. And I took a pen, a Sharpie, and attached it to the edge of the fan blade just with my fingers, and I moved it around. So it made these lines. And that's basically where the fan's going to go. And it's not centered. It's obviously off center quite a bit. So I couldn't just put that round shroud right in the middle or it wouldn't work. It does have a bit of clearance, a pretty good tolerance, 3/4 of an inch or so before it hits the fan blade. But I wanted to have a little bit of play in it if you're going off-road, frame and the body start twist a little bit. I didn't want that fan to start rubbing the fan shroud as I'm going down a trail. So I left it a little bit of slop there. And now the only thing I need to do is figure out how tall that shroud needs to come off of this so it goes right to the other side of the fan, so the fan actually sits inside it and sucks air all the way through it. And then cut everything down, cut this hole out, and I'll have a lip that I can roll up and rivet or weld to the other piece of the shroud there. And then I'll have to, you can see where the circle comes up, I'll have to fill those areas in. So I'll have to figure something out for that. Alright, so I did a little bit of work here. I cut this center section out, the inside ring, the one that I'd taken the fan blade and marked directly off the fan blade. I cut that out. And I had another circle, which was the diameter of the shroud that I made. So I took and cut little notches so I could fold these tabs up. And those are the diameter of the shroud. On the shroud, I did the same thing. I took the shroud and I measured the distance from the fan to the shroud on the top and on the bottom because it's different. The fan doesn't sit perfectly straight to the radiator. They're off just a little bit. So you measure that angle, or you measure those two, the top and the bottom, and you get the correct angle. And then I measured in about 1 inch and put this tape line so I can make these slits. And this there we go. That fits in there. So you have these tabs right here. Then I'll pop rivet onto the shroud, the round shroud. On the inside, over here, fold those up. See, they're folded up. Underneath this, you can pop rivet down into those tabs. And that's going to make this thing really secure. And then I'll go around over all this, and I'll make sure it's nice and tight to the sheet metal. It's all snug, and I'll put seam seal around it so it smooths it out. You don't have to worry about getting cut on the sharp sheet metal. So there it is, all mocked up, basically where it's going to go. I've got a little bit of a clearance issue right here. It's still too tight right there. So what I'm thinking about doing is notching the top ones a little bit further in and gradually decreasing the depth that I go, because it's still, the top's further back than the bottom. You can see the fan blade right here, but you can't see it up top.
So I want to tilt the top in a little more. It'll give you more clearance here, and it'll look more flush when you're looking at it.
All right, so I got it basically done. It's once I started working on it, I just kind of finished it up. I'll show you a little overview of what I did since the last video clip here. I've got the ring seated in the housing and the framework around the housing where it fits in there real nice. All this fits around that fan real nice. Since this ring was bigger than the frame, you have to block off this bottom area, actually the bottom area up here, and the top area, so that it doesn't suck air from anywhere but through the radiator. And this will sit about a 1/4 inch away from the radiator itself. And I thought about getting some foam and putting it around here so it seals against the radiator, but I don't think it's going to be a big problem. Even the factory fan shrouds sit a little bit away from the radiator so they don't rub on them. I think it's going to pull enough air to keep it cool, keep it nice. I did end up welding this with a bunch of little plug welds, and this is galvanized steel. So when you weld galvanized steel, you want to be really careful. You want to wear a respirator. Even if you clean the galvanized off where you're welding, chances are you're not going to clean all of it off. So you want to definitely wear a respirator, something to protect you from inhaling all the fumes. Welding galvanized is very harmful, so protect yourself and try your best to get the galvanized off where you're going to weld. With that being said, I do have to do a little bit more work. I have to scuff this all up, and I'm going to seam seal everywhere that is joined. Protect moisture from getting in between the panels and rusting it out. And then after I seam seal it, I'll spray it all black. Alright, so here it is. It was scuffed, it was etch primed, seam sealed, and trim blacked. So I don't really have to worry about it rusting. It's got so much corrosion protection on it. I mean, it's galvanized steel to start with, and then with the etch prime and the seam seal and the trim black, I don't think it's ever going to rust out. I don't think anything's ever going to happen to it. The only other thing we have to do with it now is pop it in the car. But I thought I'd give you a good look at it before I stick it in there. From the fan side, it is kind of heavy, I'll give it that. From the radiator side, got the little mounts that are going to connect up with the posts that I had going from my firewall out to my radiator. And these little brackets are going to slide into the stock brackets on the Tahoe radiator. So that holds the bottom, this holds the top. And we've got a pretty good gap, I'd say about almost 3/4 of an inch to the fan all the way around. So it's got a little bit of flex and give to it. Won't hit the fan. Let's go ahead and get this thing mounted up in this car over here and see how it looks. Alright, so there it is, installed. You can kind of see some of the tolerances with the fan. Got some decent space away from my cold air intake. This radiator hose here is going to need some support or something to keep it off that fan shroud. And right now it's resting right on top of that fan shroud. But it's in there and it'll do the job. Take you over to the other side so you can see the other side. It's a little bit
harder to see on this side because of the cold air intake.
So that's it. My custom fan shroud for my custom car. If you like this video, hit that thumbs up button. Help get this video out there. Help get my channel seen more. If you're not a subscriber, hit the subscribe button. I do this kind of stuff a lot. A lot of the stuff I make is handmade, custom made. I try not to buy too many things. If it's for a custom car, I try and make it myself. So don't forget, if you're welding galvanized steel, try and clean as much of that galvanized off as you can where you're going to be welding. Wear a respirator. All your safety equipment when working with galvanized. It's really bad for your lungs. Hope you enjoyed the video. Take it easy, guys. Go make something.